Erev Tov, everyone. It is so fantastic to see a lot of names, some faces as well. For those who don't know me, I'm Eliav Bach. I'm the rabbi and director of Ramah in the Rockies. Tonight is yesterday was the 22nd night of the Omer. Usually, counting the Omer is counting down to the opening of Shavua HaChana, of Staff Week. Admittedly, this year, we get a 2-week bonus after Shavuot. Nonetheless, every night, camp does get a little bit closer. So we're really pleased that so many people have joined us on Zoom, also on Facebook tonight to go over. This is our penultimate town hall about COVID before we welcome our chalutzim. We do hope to continue these during the summer season as well. We're joined this evening, again, in addition to all of you, by Julia Chatnover, our assistant director, Dr. Marcus Oginski, and Dr. Ali Levine, who are two of the doctors on our medical committee and have been working along with the National Ramah committee, and also Dr. Wendy, blanking on her name right now, Bernays, thank you, a public health, Dr. Wendy Bernays, who's a public health expert, who unfortunately could not join us this evening. And without further ado, we're going to actually begin just with tonight's agenda. You can kind of, Julia, we have a lot we're going to try to get through this evening, and also to make sure that we open up to questions. If you have questions, we just made it so you couldn't unmute yourself so that nobody went off mute by accident. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat. Thank you to everybody who emailed or made comments beforehand and put your questions, and we will attempt to get as many as we can. But you can see our agenda. I would say the big things that is different than if you joined us last time was, first of all, we do have some updates about testing at camp. We have also specifics on daily life at camp, the Chadar Ochel and the food service, and also more concrete plans about what happens if you test positive. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Julia.
Hey everyone. So we're not going to cover all of these pieces in our town hall tonight. These are the core elements of our COVID plan overall. Our core assumptions, which we will go over tonight, PreCamp requirements, which we'll be talking about, travel, which we covered in an earlier town hall. We'll be talking a lot today about daily camp life and if there's a case at camp, and then financial information and communication, how we'll communicate with you once your child is at camp. Those will not be covered tonight. All of the information, however, is on our website, ramahoutdoors.org/COVID-19. We really encourage you to take a look at that, to read the drop downs, to read the full COVID plan. A lot of information there. And of course, we're always available to answer whatever questions you may have. I do want to cover a little bit about what our core assumptions are and really what's the basis of our plan. Safety is our #1 priority, whether it's in a COVID summer or a non-COVID summer. And so #1 is that we must continue to believe that we can operate safely. And right now we do. We really feel confident in our plan. We feel comfortable welcoming your chalutzim to camp, welcoming our staff to camp as well. We believe we can operate safely. #2 is that regulators will allow us to operate. We just received some good news on Friday from the state with a little bit more guidance that we'll talk a little bit about tonight, but it continues to look like regulators will allow us to operate. #3 is vaccines will not be widely available for campers. We all are requiring all adult staff, to be vaccinated this summer or be willing to get the vaccine upon arrival to Colorado. And we're strongly encouraging those of you who will be in Jolie or in Bogrim or Sayrim who happen to be 16 and up to really pursue vaccination before camp. We really strongly encourage that for campers. The 4th is that COVID will still be present. I think that's pretty clear, unfortunately, and with the reality that it's possible that COVID could come into camp, and really looking at our mitigation strategies to ensure that that doesn't happen. And lastly, testing, which we'll talk about a little bit more tonight, will be readily available and affordable.
In terms of our pre-camp requirements, I will emphasize this over and over again, which is we're all in this together. The actions that each and every family chooses to do before camp is going to affect not just your immediate family, but our entire community. Colorado actually just a few hours ago released their summer camp guidelines, and all I can tell you is they are incredibly strict. If you are living in a state that has lifted regulations, you don't have to worry about COVID anymore, you don't have to worry about reporting cases. It is the exact opposite in Colorado, and because we operate as a Colorado child care facility, we are going to be incredibly strict. If we have too many cases, it'll be detrimental, devastating, not just to our summer, to the entire Ramah camp in Colorado, and we might never, ever rebound from that. So I'm going to implore you, saying this now, and I cannot be any more direct than the following. If you are not able to adhere to these pre-camp requirements, please let us know. We will refund your money. We hope your child will be able to come at another time, but these are not optional. These are not, if you believe it, don't worry about it. We're totally vaccinated. We think the CDC, we think Colorado is all overboard. Whatever your personal beliefs are, doesn't matter to us. We have to adhere to these, and we are happy to refund money. So here's how it goes. The 2 weeks before camp, every member of the household must wear a mask at any time interacting with anyone who's outside your immediate household. You may not participate in youth sports. You may not go to school. You may not go to other people's homes if you are not fully masked. I understand most of our parents, many of our older campers are vaccinated. At the moment, it does not matter. These requirements are for vaccinated and for unvaccinated. You cannot go to a large gathering where there's no universal masking. We've had many families ask, can we go camping if we're all wearing masks? Yes. Can we go to a day camp if in New York State where there is universal masking among youth? Yes. Can you go to a day camp if everybody is testing every 5 days? You don't really have to worry about COVID. Absolutely, positively not. It is incumbent upon all of us to really adhere to this. We've had many families who have said, Eliav, I think you're overreacting. We're going to take our child out this summer, passing no judgment whatsoever. But this is our plan moving forward. And if you choose to continue deciding to send your child or for our campers and staff to come join us at Ramah in the Rockies this summer, you must be able to adhere to these pre-camp requirements. The other thing is we need everybody to make a testing plan. At the moment, whether you are vaccinated or unvaccinated, you still need to have a testing plan, and you need to have a test 10 to 14 days out and also 48 to 72 hours out. I understand, our doctor in a moment, one of them is going to speak. It might change in 6 weeks from now, but at the moment, we are requiring vaccinated and unvaccinated campers and staff to make a testing plan and to come with 2 negative tests. I will ask Dr. Marcus or Dr. Ali to talk a little bit about what it means if you have a positive test or a known COVID case anywhere from 30, 60, or 14 days out. But I really, just to emphasize the take home, we have very strict pre-camp requirements. The way we're going to be able to run camp safely this summer is by keeping COVID out and containing any possible COVID spread, and it's up to all of us together to make sure that not only is your child safe, but also your child's friends and also the entire Ramah in the Rockies camp community. And to the question about if tests are not back, we will not be accepting any child who does not have a negative PCR test done in less than 72 hours before camp. Could be 74 because of Shabbat for second session, but use 72 as that goal. You have it 4 days, 10 days out. Not going to happen. Unfortunately, we are just going to tell you that you cannot come on the airport bus. Don't put your child on a plane that morning if you don't have the test. You should call around now, find out what the availability is at the different labs. PCR test only takes, I believe, 2 hours-ish to run, but there is a backlog. So you come to some place in the country, you're going to get your test back in 10 hours, and other places it might be 5 or 6 days. The reason we really encourage you to make a testing plan now is start calling around, finding out where there is availability, because The test doesn't take so long. It's the backlog to get the test through the system that absolutely can take a very, very long time and truly depends on where you are in the country. I'm going to turn it over to either Dr. Marcus or Julia.
I'll go over our sort of plan briefly, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Marcus to talk about testing at camp. So we will continue to test at camp. Right now the plan, and Dr. Marcus is going to explain briefly what system we're using, sort of late breaking news on our end. We're planning to test day 0 or day 1, sort of depending on your group, again, day 5 or day 6. And then we'll be continuing to have regular weekly screening. So if you're coming for 4 weeks, you should expect to have at least 5 COVID tests while at camp. 2 weeks, probably looking at 3, maybe 4 COVID tests. And we're going to be using, if you present with symptoms while at camp, so any of the COVID symptoms, we will have ability to do a rapid test at camp, but that will be confirmed with PCR as well. And we're looking at using the Abbott Binax Now program, which is the system that Colorado is using for schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Marcus to talk a little bit about how that works.
So let me follow up with a few of the questions that are up in the chat about the pre-camp testing first. This came up quite a bit at the last town hall meeting as well. You have to make a plan for the testing. It's very important. When you look at a lot of websites for COVID testing, you will see that it takes 3 to 5 days for a test to come back. That's really just, they haven't updated their websites with the most accurate information. You have to talk to them, you have to call them, you have to find out. There are a number of options to research. A lot of pediatrician offices aren't doing the testing because of the way that it's sent out and the turnaround and all of that. But there are a lot of facilities that you can go to. In Colorado, there are a lot of things through various counties. I know Boulder County has a very fast turnaround time on their testing. There's COVID Check Colorado, which will do all kids age 2 and up. Just have to make the reservations and plan for it. And a lot of urgent cares are doing it. There are a lot of urgent cares that are just basically drive-through, swab, bill your insurance, that sort of thing. So there are definitely a lot of options. I noticed AFC, AFC urgent cares, if that's good with your insurance, they are doing it. They're advertising if you do a saliva PCR test with them, they're turning those around in 24 hours. So really it's just a matter of calling and setting things up. Don't stress about it too much. There are lots and lots of people doing this and getting their results back within that 72-hour time frame pretty reliably. And also know you're going to do that test 10 to 14 days beforehand. It's like a dry run. So you're going to know how fast things come back. The other piece that I'll say about pre-camp testing is that if you have had COVID and you have had it within 90 days prior to camp, we need to know about it. And that has to be test proven, documented COVID, not just, oh, I think I had it, or my doctor thought I had it. It has to be test proven. From the time that you had the test, there's a 90-day clock that goes forward. Inside of that 90-day window, there is no need for you to repeat any tests. The tests are very unreliable inside of that 90 days. So if we know that you have had COVID and it's documented, we won't have any testing requirement for you, and we won't be testing you or your child in the screening program that we do at camp. But we just need to know that window, because as soon as that 90-day clock ends, and if it ends during camp session, then we have to start you into the testing program as well. But just make sure that we know if it's been documented COVID in those 90 days. So the program that we're looking at for camp right now, and this is the current tentative plan, because nothing in COVID is ever permanent, it seems like, but our current plan, which we're really excited about, is if we know that we have everybody coming into camp previously tested, then we know we have a good population that has a really, really, really low chance of bringing COVID into camp. That's first and most important. Then we'll be able to do antigen-based testing. Antigen-based testing is super exciting for us because the antigen tests, they come in a little kit like a rapid swab test card, and we can run them right at camp. So it's swab in the nose, not deep swab, just in the front of the nose, into the card, results in 15 minutes. So basically we can line people up by OHEL, Everybody gets swabbed, everybody's negative, boom, they're done, off they go. For the program to work, we have to have a number of tests at the beginning, and then we have to test every 7 days throughout regardless and push it right on through. Now, the key thing to know about these sorts of tests, particularly if you're doing any Google research out there, is that the tests have a high rate of false positives. So the test is positive, but you don't actually have COVID. So what's changed in Colorado is that they're not going to freak out if we have one of these positive tests. We'll be able to take that child or that staff member aside, put them into quarantine, PCR tests right away. We'll have a mechanism to send those out. We're hoping to get turnaround time in 24 to 48 hours on those. If the PCR test comes back negative, we're done. Everybody's out of quarantine and everything moves on just fine. So having that follow-up, backup PCR testing is super, super important to be able to run this efficiently. Originally, those positive antigen tests were just considered positive and we were done. And we couldn't take the risk of all of those false positives. So having the backup confirmation is going to be super useful for us. We're going to do a whole lot less PCR tests, and we'll be do the vast majority of our tests right on property and have results basically immediately.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Marcus. And I am going to address later in the presentation a little bit about what would happen experience-wise if your child goes into either isolation or quarantine. So I promise we will get to that. We're talking a lot about what it's going to take to get to camp and have camp. So I want to talk about what camp is going to look like. So we're anticipating sort of two modes of camp happening. One is our initial strict period during the first 7 days, where we'll be mostly spending time by cohort, which we're defining as an OHEL, about 10 campers and 2 staff, and then the period after that. In those first 7 days, we really are focusing on that OHEL bonding and the values that we really hold. Two of our 4 core values, which are simcha, joy, and ksharvim, connection. Really focusing on opportunities for our chalutzim, our campers, to bond with the other kids and staff in their OHEL. The daily schedule is going to look a little bit different during these days. We're not 100% sure what that will look like, but it's definitely in development and something we hope to share before arrival to camp. Masa, our backcountry trips, will be done by OHEL. So from Ilanot, our 3rd and 4th graders, all the way up to Sayarim, Bugrim and Sayarim, our 9th and 10th graders. Jolie, your own OHEL, so you're all together, but you'll be doing Masa by OHEL. All of our older chalutzim will be experiencing a short backpacking trip, and our younger chalutzim will do a base camping, wilderness skills focused trip in camp. We will, during this time, still have regular chugim. So you're not going to miss out on rock climbing or mountain biking or horseback riding. We'll just be doing those things masked outdoors and being really careful about distance between our specialists and the folks in our cohorts. We will have some programs by Eda as a whole age group, but only in a situation where we can be masked and have the groups sitting separately. So if you can imagine, for those of you who've been to camp before, going to tefillah, going to prayers in the morning, your OHEL, your bunk, will sit in one spot, and 6 to 12 feet away from you will be another OHEL all grouped together. The major reason that we're changing our schedule and why this time is going to look a little bit different is that free time is going to be structured. So we can't have any OHEL unstructured mixing during that time. So chalutz or chalutza, camper from bunk A, cannot be interacting with bunk B even during free time, because that could be considered a close contact. So we'll be providing more opportunities for structured play, opportunities for OHELim to pick activities, things like that during our free time. This will be true too during Shabbat. Then we're going to move to the next period. So for some of our chalutzim, the next 7 days, if you're with us for 2 weeks, or the rest of camp, 3 full weeks if you're with us. What we really hope, assuming those tests that we're doing in the first week come back negative, it doesn't look like we have any COVID in camp, will be a little bit more like camp has always looked. We'll move to our traditional daily schedule, Masa'ot and Chugim for our older campers. So our basically 5th and 6th graders and up will be mixed groups. So boys and girls together and choice-based. And the major difference is that we're going to continue to wear masks when we're outside of our OHEL. So basically, our hope is that in those final 3 weeks of each session, camp will look basically like it has in previous summers, just with masks when we are physically outside of our OHEL, when we're physically outside of our living space.
I actually was just at camp last week for the first time in 14 months and have to say we are about to finish an absolutely incredible Chadar Ochel. We'll show pictures in 1 minute of it, but we plan to eat in 3 Chadrei Ochel, and actually when we have Ta'am Ramah, we'll have our 4th area as well. Probably the most COVID unfriendly or most COVID dangerous thing we're going to be doing this summer actually is eating in the dining hall, because frankly it's really our only indoor space. That being said, it is very airy, fans going. We'll be eating at long tables that are placed 6 to 12 feet apart, but you'll be eating by Ohel just within your cohort. Each table will have a buffet cart. Those of you who have been to our camp before, you know there's a lot of movement in the Chadar Ochel that will not be happening. This year. Only madrichim, only counselors will be able to get up. They will get the buffet cart. They will roll it out to the table. They will serve from there, and also stacking. So really, it is going to be very, very regimented. If campers need to get up to go to the bathroom, they can do that, but we're not going to be getting up, going to visit tables. Unfortunately, as much as I love to go visit all the different tables and sit with different campers and get to know counselors as well during meal times, like that is not going to be able to be happening as well. We do expect to be able to serve the same quality food that we have in years past. We're changing up the menu a bit, not for the COVID town hall. We're going to be doing a vegan barbecue once a week using like a Beyond Meat sort of type product. And the one big difference is going to be we will not be having any shared salad bars. We'll not be having a shared peanut butter and jelly station. We will have to figure out, we will have more tossed salads, but for those who have absolutely loved like our breakfast bars with all sorts of different options, those are going to be more limited. And that is definitely a detail that we'll have to figure out. Again, we just found out a few hours ago that doing buffet is, we just got more regulations from the state of Colorado that is going to impact how exactly we serve. The other thing is we will not be doing Shira in the Chadar Ochel. Actually, per Colorado regulations, you can't do any loud singing in the dining hall. And but we do plan to still do quieter Birkat Hamazon and also grace and also brachot before the meals. For those who want special meal options, whether it's vegan or vegetarian or gluten-free, we will have those as well. But again, it'll only be counselors that can get up. They get up from the table. You know, for those who have eaten out in a restaurant during COVID, you put on your mask, you go get the stuff. Our campers will need to be seating down. The next slide, I think, actually we see these amazing pictures. So the pictures that you're seeing here in the top right with those two big fans, it's actually our new administrative center. It was built as a year-round Chadar Ochel. During the summer, in theory, it was supposed to be a staff administrative center, staff lounge. It is going to be one of our eating places. This is located behind our dining hall. In the top left is our outdoor. It's a 1,500 square foot outdoor eating pavilion that was designed, and those plastic things are 2 garage doors. And then the inside, you can see the new Chadar Ochel, the new dining hall, which is right in the middle. This thing was put up like Lincoln Logs. It was actually built in a factory off-site, trucked in, and assembled. It's 5,000 square feet, plus an additional 3,500 square feet of the administrative center. And when we have Ta'am Ramah, our Taste of Ramah program, they will be eating in the art pavilion, which is right across. So we are super duper excited to have these buildings. I will say if we need to open next week, these buildings are, minus the floor that you can see and some touch up. Garage doors, aluminum is back ordered till a question mark, but it's pretty awesome that almost 2 months before welcoming our campers, we have our buildings totally ready. So if there's a positive test, so Dr. Marcus mentioned it. We have also a brand new infirmary that we started designing many years before COVID. Also had a chance to tour that last week. It actually opened in the middle of last summer. So if there is a positive test, again, as Dr. Marcus said, if it's a antigen positive, we will need to isolate the person, quarantine all of his or her close contacts. The person who is isolated will be in the infirmary. We can run a second PCR test. We have developed two different areas of camp. We have a place for isolation, which is in our current infirmary. We are actually segregating the back of our current infirmary for positive cases. We also are building additional tents outside and have an additional indoor Tough Shed 8, for those who know our property, will be a hangout spot. Those are for isolation. God forbid we need it. We will have 16 beds available. I think 12 actually, not 16 beds. 12 beds available for people who are in isolation. They will have access to running water, hot, cold bathrooms, flush toilets, all that stuff. And it is totally segregated from the front part of the infirmary, which is for usual cuts, scrapes, bruises, people who do not display any symptoms of COVID. In addition, we are setting aside all of our Ramah Valley cabins, which are these cabins that you see here, and two additional tents we haven't used in years in Ramah Valley. We also bring in extra porta potties and extra dining tent to Ramah Valley. If we need to quarantine bunks, we will have up to 40 spaces in Ramah Valley. We also are setting up the Jolie area to be its own quarantineville. We hope we are so over planning. We are spending about $95,000 this summer just to prepare physical sites for any COVID related issues, from quarantining and extra shields and extra dividers. I hope that all this money we kind of wish we hadn't done, but we truly believe that we need to over prepare just in case anything does happen. And as Dr. Marcus mentioned, the quarantine in Ramah Valley is going to really depend on local health guidelines in terms of when people will be able to come out. But if campers are in Ramah Valley, they're living there, they're still participating in camp in a modified version. We're still going to be getting the meals. They're still going to have chances to go hiking and to go camping. Closer to the time, we'll figure out, again, based on local health guidelines, whether or not they can use the bouldering wall, whether we can give them some bikes. It's really going to depend on what Jefferson County tells us. And again, we just this morning or a few hours ago, got their first camp guidelines. And I am certain that between now and the summer, those camp guidelines are going to be continuing to be updated. Julia.
So we're going to close the frontal portion. I see we already have a bunch of questions in the chat, which I know Rabbi Eliav has been answering as we go along, and we'll open it up for questions now. We obviously are doing so much. We are so excited to welcome your chalutzim, welcome your campers, welcome youth, Sevet members, staff members to camp. And we want to make sure that you're ready to come to camp. There are some things that are going to look just like they normally have. There are some things that are going to look new. We have, I think, over 180 campers for whom they will be stepping on camp for the first time this summer. So we want to make sure you are prepared. So we're doing one more COVID town hall, as Rabbi Eliav mentioned, Monday, May 24th. We are doing a parent learning night, a community Kabbalat Shabbat in 2 weeks, which information about that will be going out later this week. And then we also have our new camper orientations and a new camper game night throughout May. So we really encourage you, if you have any questions or are a new camper and excited to learn more about camp, we really encourage you to attend those sessions. More information about all of those is on our COVID-19 page. And really, we know that this summer is going to be incredible. We know this summer is going to look a little different, but we are keeping really focused on those two core values that we mentioned of sharim, of building connections, of simcha, of joy, because we know that's what everyone really needs most right now. So thank you all for listening. We are going to open it up for questions.
Yeah, I'm going to, and then Marcus, I'm going to ask you to jump in here. Just in terms of the quarantine, the asymptomatic Rapid test, yes. So we have our quarantine, again, different than, isolation, different than quarantine. If you are in isolation, there are 4 different isolation rooms. 2 of them are tents, 2 of them are actual bedrooms. If we have a positive from a PCR, from a antigen that we're getting at, PCR, we're not going to put that person in the same room as somebody who has a confirmed PCR test. And even within the quarantine, just because you have, let's say, you have 30 people out in quarantine, we still going to need to maintain groups. And even when we think about the toilets and the hand washing and the eating, all of those, we are going to keep those quarantine groups separate, even though they are all in the same place. I'm going to ask Dr. Marcus to weigh in on the what if someone tests positive in the last few days of camp, and also on Meredith Levy's question about swimming in the 14 days prior.
So testing positive before leaving camp is we'll have to deal with it on a case-by-case basis. For local kids, it's not going to be an issue. Family can come and pick them up and do, as long as the county is tracking where that isolation goes to, the county will be fine with it. It's for kids who have to travel, we will have to figure that out on a case-by-case basis, because, obviously we can't take somebody who we know is positive and inside of the 10 days of isolation period and put them on a plane.
And what about the swimming?
The swimming, so I can't imagine that swimming is a masked activity. So that, I think that would be a fairly problematic activity prior to camp.
While you have the floor, can you answer the question about, are we going to limit people from certain areas? Question here from Aaron. If the state is spiking, are we going to limit residents from a specific state or community?
No, the only thing that it changes is how we interpret some of our tests. And so at the moment, there's no current place in the country that's so bad that there's any kind of travel restrictions. We do have to interpret some of our testing strategy a little bit, depending on where people are coming from. Like, for example, somebody coming from Detroit today, our testing procedure won't work as well for them. So we'll have to take a look at that based on the numbers right as when we're getting closer to camp. The state does have a cutoff number that we follow for that.
Cool. Sarah asked about how long quarantine is. Marcus, you want to take that?
Yeah, so just to clarify the terminology, I think the words get passed backwards and forwards continuously with the news, and everybody messes it up. Just for reference, so quarantine, a little bit of education here. Quarantine is an Italian word. It was the term for the period, the place where plague ships had to go in the harbor to sit for 40 days, and then they could come out of quarantine and be free of plague. Didn't quite work that way, but pretty much the rats died in 40 days anyway. So quarantine is where you go to kind of sit and not know if you're safe to come out or not. Isolation is where you go where you know that you have something and you don't want anybody else around you. So just to kind of clarify those two terms, if you know that if we know somebody has COVID, if they have a positive test, they have to be in isolation for 10 days plus additional time until they're no fever in 24 hours and haven't been using any anti-fever medications. That's the isolation strategy. That's the CDC recommended isolation strategy. It goes a little bit longer than that on some special cases, but pretty much for simplicity, it's 10 days. So if we have a positive camper, they will go into isolation. Their cohort will go into quarantine. So that's in Ramah Valley. That cohort could stay there for 10 days and come out, or if the state will allow us, potentially test after 5 days, and if negative on the test, then come out of quarantine. So there's a couple different options there, but pretty much isolates positive for 10 days. Everybody else is quarantined for 10 days.
And
Julie,
really,
you want to take Lily's question?
We saw a related question. If a child is asymptomatic but positive, what will they be doing during isolation? So they will be isolated in our Mirpa'a and that space near the Mirpa'a, near the health center that Rabbi Eliav described. We've hired a dedicated nursing student who's going to be our Mirpa'a assistant, and really they're focused on the camper experience of those who are in the Mirpa'a, whether it's for COVID or otherwise. They'll have appropriate PPE and hopefully engage with this child mostly outside, especially if they're asymptomatic, but they'll be in charge of making sure that they have entertainment and when permitted, doing activities and things like that. So they will have someone really watching over them, and they'll have entertainment and activities and hopefully an opportunity to remotely, not via screen, but through notes and through whatever, interact with the outside world a little bit. I want to also, while I have the floor, just really quickly answer Bernardo's question, which is where will Jolie be located? Jolie is going to be in two brand new Ohalim that we're building right near what is called the Meat Bachon or Woods Woman. For those of you who've been with us, kind of near the old, where the bike tent used to be, you guys will be up there and you'll have your own space with your own bathrooms and that Jotsev Woods Woman, lots of names for it to hang out in.
I'm going to answer Moy's question. If a camper is positive and parents have to come pick up, where do out-of-state parents stay? I mentioned the regulations released a few hours ago. I encourage everybody to read them. They're like amazing, fun reading. And I can just tell you what the regulations are. The regulations are the following. A parent from out of state who comes and picks up their child is required to go to an in-state hotel and quarantine for 10 days. They may not leave the room even to get, this is by memory from an hour ago I read it, even to get food or drink. That's what the state says, and they must contact public health officials and may not leave the state. Listen, if you come and get your child, we are going to assume that you are going to make good decisions. We are not going to, we will be reporting, as you know, we have to report every positive case within 24 hours to the state. If Eliav Bach comes and picks up his child from camp and the health department says, where is little Bach? We say parent Eliav Bach picked up their child. They're no longer in our custody. If you choose to follow those directions, go for it. If you choose not to, that's your own business. The other question I wanted to ask was, there was one other question here. What was it? Hold on. All right, Julia, I totally lost my mojo.
Okay,
will counselors be allowed off camp?
Oh, there you go. I was going to say, let's take Sarah's two questions.
Yeah. So again, at the moment, we are treating vaccinated staff the same as unvaccinated staff in terms of mingling with the general population. We are running a closed camp, which means you can only enter on certain days. You can only leave on official business. So we are going to be doing Masaot. We are, when we need to, go to the pharmacy to get a prescription. If we need to pick up, curbside at Walmart or whatever it is, we are going to be doing that. What we are not going to be doing, our staff, even this director, is going to Starbucks. One of the most luxurious things I do on my third week of camp is I put on clean jeans and a polo shirt and I go sit in Starbucks for 2 hours, and it's absolutely incredible. Sadly, I'm not going to be able to do that this year. I'll have to figure out some other way to relax. I am fully vaccinated right now. But that is the situation, and all of our Tsevet who are coming understand that they are coming into a closed community. Now, what are we doing? First of all, separate topic, we're hopefully going to be doing a lot in order to make sure that our staff can stay physically and mentally healthy. If they want to borrow tents and go into the national forest, they can do that. If they want to, we must have ways for our staff to relax. Unfortunately, they will not be allowed to leave the mountain at this point, other than again on official business. And the question about the photos is an amazing one. Unfortunately, we still have horrendous internet capabilities at camp. Almost all the photos that parents have seen over the past 11 years have been uploaded at Starbucks. We do not know exactly how we are going to be dealing with photos this year because that is not considered official business. We are not going to be taking the risk of sending our staff member to a Starbucks an hour away to sit there and upload photos. It might be close to the time that we just let people know you're going to be getting only a few photos a week because we're running on a T1 line and backup satellite. It might be that we are able to do a few more than that. The only political thing I ever say publicly is vote at the ballot box. Internet should not be a luxury. It should be a right for every American citizen. And every camp, even remote ones like us, should be able to afford high-speed internet, which right now is not possible. End of my political statements for the evening. Marcus, will you take the question that I got about how are we going to be dealing with campers whose parents are symptomatic within the few days before drop-off?
The question is parents who have COVID prior to picking their kids up?
Not picking them up, dropping them off. Parents who are symptomatic with COVID-like symptoms in the few days before drop-off.
Before they drive up to camp to drop their kids off?
Or before they put their kids on the plane?
Well, presumably our pre-camp testing would pick that up, but that's very complicated. If you have symptoms, you should get a test. If you get a test, I'm talking to a parent here, if the parent is positive, then the household is under quarantine for 10 days, and the child, regardless of testing results, can't travel. And there's a lot of trickiness there in terms of timing and windows and things like that. If somebody tests positive and their family member gets a test inside of 5 days, then it really doesn't count. There's all stuff like that. So it's very complicated. I don't know. There's not an easy answer for that. But be in touch with us. We can walk you through this. I get about, 10 to 20 of these kind of questions a day.
Yeah, I would say our main message there with any pre-camp, anything is, if you have any questions, communicate with us. We're obviously in touch with Dr. Marcus on a regular basis. And we know that we will deal with case-by-case situations this summer. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have a question. There's no such thing this summer as under-communicating to us about what's going on with your family, whether that's health-wise or we encourage you to fill out our pre-camp information about your kids and what's been going on this year. Please we want to be able to care for your kids as well as we can. But while I have the floor, I want to just take really quickly the question about parents dropping off. Parents will not be allowed to enter the Ohalim. Those are indoor spaces for us. So if you drive your child to camp, it's actually always been our policy that parents are not involved in unpacking with campers. We ask that happens with the OHEL as a bonding exercise. So parents will be welcome to drive up, basically drop off their kids and see the grounds outdoors, wave goodbye, and then say goodbye. So you will not be allowed to enter the OHEL if you do drop off. Rabbi Eliav.
There was a question here you asked me to take. What was it? Oh, the vaccine trial. Heck yeah is the answer. And for those, for kids who are part of a vaccine trial as well, you should absolutely, if we need to log their information, take their temperatures, whatever needs to be done, just in general, you should know this because we've had kids in other medical trials as well. We are happy to work with them on that.
And then we have two questions from Facebook, and then Rabbi Eliav, I just sent you the next question that I'd like you to answer. The two questions from Facebook will there be communication about all testing results? Yes, we are building out a COVID test dashboard that will be located on our COVID-19 website. You will be able to check that. We'll be uploading information about all the tests we take at camp, negative, positive, inconclusive, whatever. You'll know when we've done a test. We won't be sending out any emails unless your child tests positive or someone in their cohort tests positive. So we'll be sending out regular camp communication overall, but COVID specific emails will only be if your child is in isolation or your child is in quarantine, you're welcome to check that COVID dashboard as frequently as you'd like to see how frequently we are testing. And then there was also a question from Facebook, will all staff at camp, will there be staff at camp who are not fully vaccinated? Will staff be asked or required to be vaccinated? Staff are being required to be vaccinated. We do have a number of staff coming from Mexico, Canada, and Hungary who doesn't seem like they're going to be able to get vaccinations before camp. Our hope is to be able to vaccinate them the moment they arrive on property. Many of them are arriving May 30th. The next group, our last group of staff, is arriving June 7th. So they will be on their way to full vaccination once kids arrive, but there will be a few international staff who are not vaccinated. Otherwise, domestic staff are required to be vaccinated to come to camp this summer.
Yeah, just regarding transportation to camp. So it's on our page, and again, I really would encourage everyone to look at our COVID page. We've only touched the beginnings of I'd say the high level topics, but we're going to be gathering outside the main terminal under the Westin Hotel Promenade. We will be putting campers on buses. Siblings can sit next to each other. Other than that, we're going to have one person per seat, masked. Windows right now will be at least half open, maybe entirely open. It is going to be incredibly loud. Going up, for 2 hours on. It's loud usually when we have windows up. So I also would encourage anybody taking the bus to bring earphones. Unfortunately, usually we love bonding on the bus. Camp sort of begins, chit-chatting, all that sort of stuff. Not going to be able to be happening this year because we don't want to have a situation in which people arrive at camp and child who is in the third seat all of a sudden in close contact with everybody else on that bus. So by having the windows open, one person per seat, unless they're siblings who are already going to be together, that's how we hope to make sure the bus is not a way that we're spreading COVID. I think, I'm just looking at that, have we missed any questions? Okay, so the last thing I'm going to say, and we've been taking attendance on this call. We actually can't really figure out who's watching on Facebook. This is, again, a partnership between us, the camp administration, those of us who are really taking care of your most precious possessions, and all of you, our campers, our staff, and our families. And we are greatly, greatly appreciative that you entrust us with your most valuable possessions, children, whatever. We don't take this lightly, ever. Even more so this year when we are dealing with opening camp amidst a global pandemic. Luckily, every month the news gets better and better, and we really do anticipate that we'll be able to operate safely this summer with all the protocols that we have in place. And we really hope that you understand, and for the families who are not on this call, but we'll be following up with them, how important it is for us all to really understand that we're all in this together, and the actions of one family affects hundreds and hundreds of other families. To this end, we've we're requiring all of our families to sign the document outlining our expectations, both guardians and parents, and also campers, and to upload that along with a medical form. Please actually do that in the next week or two, because we're going to just start calling families whose uploads we have not gotten, which suggests that either they're not able to agree to these, or they've just missed all the memos that we've been sending out. So truly, thank you for being part of the Ramah and the Rockies community. We hope it's going to be a fantastic summer. And if you have any questions over the next few weeks before our next town hall, COVID town hall, please do let us know. And of course, these other chances to gather, including next Friday night, April 30th, 4:30 Mountain for Kabbalat Shabbat. We look forward to having all of you there. So, Toda Rabah, Laila Tov, and thank you.